Welcome. This is Charlie from Common Sense News, presenting a short video about Qatar and its relationship to the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been identified as a terrorist group by many countries. The key thing to remember during this piece is that the Muslim Brotherhood is an extremist group acting as peaceful on purpose to gain entry into a country, and once in, start slowly with forcing the host country to accept a culture that is counter to Western societies. This is totally unacceptable, and our eyes should be wide open, not closed to what is going on. Why doesn't anyone in the mainstream media report on Qatar's apparent friendliness in hosting, working with, and providing funds to the Muslim Brotherhood and their associated groups? Something doesn't feel right about this relationship, but time will tell. It is understandable that achieving peace in the Middle East is challenging, especially when a major Islamic country like Qatar chooses to engage with the Muslim Brotherhood, whereas many other Middle East countries have designated them as a terrorist organization. And the U.S. will be following suit soon. Making peace is never simple, and we need to continue the efforts and never stop trying. This piece is not intended to be against Muslims, but rather against the idea of Islam becoming the rule of law in our country, or any Western country for that matter. Extremists are gradually imposing their culture on Western societies, one step at a time, such as Muslims shutting down streets in European countries to pray, and it was allowed for fear of offending Islam. This act doesn't occur in Muslim countries and is done in Western societies as an intimidation to let people know not to mess with Islam. If you were to visit a Muslim country, would you expect them to accommodate Christianity or Judaism? What would happen if you kneeled in the middle of the street with your friends to pray? Yet that is precisely what is happening in Western societies, with the full support of the progressives. Turning to Qatar and its close ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, their goal appears to be peaceful integration initially, followed by the eventual establishment of Islam as the final rule of law. We should never underestimate the influence of religious leaders in Islam. Their followers can be driven to extremes, even to the point of becoming suicide bombers. Remember the instances where individuals, motivated by religious extremism, have attacked innocent people and forces, driven by a belief that supporting their cause makes them martyrs. Additionally, in many cases, their families are taken care of after their deaths by the extremists. At one time, Hamas recognized suicide bombers as heroes, marching in the streets, taking the body to its end state in total joy for the Jews who were killed. This has happened too many times to count in Israel and against our forces throughout the Middle East. A report from the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, ISGAP, states that Qatar has an ideological goal of spreading Islam peacefully from within the borders of Western countries. In fact, the Muslim Brotherhood openly declares this goal. However, is anyone paying attention, especially here in the U.S.? I think not. Why have we not heard that the ruling family of Qatar has pledged Bay'ah, a spiritual oath of loyalty to the Muslim Brotherhood? Unfortunately, our media often avoids reporting on these issues for fear of offending Muslims, which is deeply troubling. If our media were doing their job, perhaps we wouldn't have instances of women traveling to the Middle East to support fighters in battle, only to discover that they were merely being used as concubines. Women have, historically, not been treated as equals in many Islamic societies. While there are some positive changes occurring in places like Saudi Arabia, men still hold the majority of power. In the Middle East, there is significant funding directed toward Muslims around the world. While some of this funding supports beneficial causes, a substantial portion is focused on promoting the spread of Islam, often aligning with extremist agendas that aim to gain influence within societies through peaceful strategies. The real concern for Western countries is the unlimited funding from the Middle East for various Muslim causes. Many Western universities receive funding from wealthy donors, and there are billions of unspent fortunes waiting for the right opportunity to be distributed. As a country, we need to be aware and monitor our universities, as they are willing to take money from anyone and have no concern for our national defense. Research shows that the Muslim Brotherhood is active at over 600 universities, quietly attracting followers in line with its plans. As a result, there are Islamic extremists who support the Muslim Brotherhood teaching at our universities. However, we often do not know what they are teaching because the universities remain tight-lipped about it. Common sense suggests that a version of Muslim history is being presented that omits Jews and Christians from the narrative. Do you truly believe that these instructors are conveying an unbiased view of history? You can make your own judgment on that matter. Qatar fully supports the Muslim Brotherhood and its ideology, which should raise significant concerns for all of us. If you examine the situation in Europe and England, the results are clear. Outcomes we do not want to see replicated in the U.S. We must ensure that nonprofits are screened, audited, and held accountable for the funding they receive and distribute, especially when it does not align with their stated missions. There is an alarming amount of money flowing from the Middle East to Western countries without accountability, and that is not a good thing. I want to conclude by stating that not all Muslims are extremists. In fact, the vast majority are peaceful. Therefore, we should not generalize or disparage Islam or Muslims based on the actions of extremists. However, it's imperative to recognize that extremists work to radicalize peaceful Muslims, as evidenced by the recent attack on our National Guard, which resulted in the death of one female soldier and left another in critical condition. We cannot afford to be complacent about our founding principles. Otherwise, we risk losing them entirely. There is no rebuilding of our great nation if the Muslim extremists win. Our Constitution means nothing to them, and people need to understand that dealing with the Middle East is nothing like the wars of the past. This is new because we are dealing with a religion, not a country. All we need to do is be informed and make sure our Congress is as well, and that is the hardest battle of all. I appreciate your support and will continue to share the information that mainstream media often ignores. I urge you to conduct your own research and avoid following those on the left who seem to blindly follow a path towards socialism. Thank you, and this is Charlie signing off.